Voters in Colombia will head to the polls Sunday to elect a new president. While one candidate could win right away if none of the 14 candidates get more than 50% of the vote, a second round will be held on June 21st between the top two contenders. The winner could cause a dramatic shift in the country's politics for the next 4 years, with the impact extending far beyond its borders. CBS News national correspondent Lilia Luciano joins me now. So who are the main contenders and why does this matter for the U.S.?
Well, two different questions. I think like in the U.S., this election is incredibly polarized, more so than we've seen here in a long time. You have Iván Cepeda, who right now is leading the polls by an extremely thin margin. The latest Atlas Intel poll before the campaigns closed down showed that Cepeda, he's the far-left candidate, had a 38.7% of the vote versus Abelardo de la Espriella, who has 37.3% of the vote. These are the two leading candidates. De la Espriella is a far-right candidate. He is somebody who has modeled himself after, in rhetoric, in optics, even in the way he carries out the rallies, in his old attitude, but also importantly on the policies after President Trump and people like President Bukele of El Salvador, who's very much a hardliner. Even his beard looks like Bukele's. On the other side, on the far left, you have Iván Cepeda, who we're seeing here on screen. Cepeda is a senator who is a long-time far-left political figure in Colombia. His father was assassinated by right-wing paramilitaries. A lot of the policies that we have seen under President Petro, where they have been more lenient with the former guerrillas, with the current guerrillas, with the paramilitary groups, under this idea that you can negotiate with them, although every one of those negotiations has failed. He has been the architect of a lot of those policies. On the other side, you have Abelardo de la Espriella, who is saying we need to build mega prisons like in El Salvador. He would very likely be part of that initiative that the U.S. is launching in Latin America, the Shield of the Americas, where you're seeing joint military operations with U.S. military and the country's military, for instance, in Ecuador, in other places as well. You're seeing more of that cooperation, primarily to fight drug trafficking. The leftist candidate has these other policies that you can not only negotiate with the guerrillas and the other groups that control drug production in Colombia, but that you can have these alternative methods to convince farmers to exchange the coca that they grow for other things. In the last years, in the 4 years that Petro has been in power, those policies have significantly failed because the numbers show that cocaine is being trafficked and produced at a higher level than in decades in Colombia, possibly than ever before. Then you have a third candidate. This is an interesting candidate. She's not so much the center candidate, she's center-right, and that is Paloma Valencia. She is supported by one of Colombia's most famous and celebrated figures, who's a former president, President Álvaro Uribe, who is also a hardliner. So regardless of who you get, her numbers are around 14%. So it's unlikely, if you follow the polls, if the polls hold, that you'll have her as one of the main two, but anything can happen between now and Sunday. Still, it matters to the U.S. because you can have one of those leaders who's hand in hand with the Trump administration under the next 2 years of the Trump administration, who is carrying out these very hardline policies, potentially approving of the boat strikes and potentially even strikes on land, or you have somebody who is talking about Colombia is not a colony of the United States, who who has this kind of more anti-imperialist rhetoric and things like that. So somebody who would go along with the same policies that created that that friction between Petro and President Trump.
Wow. Okay, keep us posted. Lilia Luciano, thank you.